What is going on, people? Welcome back to Big Man Outdoor Adventures. And today is going to be a little different, in part because, last week I kind of tore the soles off my hiking boots. So at the moment I don't have it. I also haven't slept because, frankly, one of my kids decided that it would be a bright idea to wake up at 3 a.m. and not let me go back to bed. And, well, in that scenario, it's not really a bright idea to go outside, and, it's muddy. It's been really muddy and gross. It hasn't rained today. It's not supposed to, but you know what? It just hasn't been the right weather. So I thought I'd take a moment to share most of what I have learned since I started doing all this outdoor stuff, since I started doing hiking, camping, bushcrafting type stuff. Hunting is not really in the cards. It's just not. With that said, so I started really doing stuff kind of back in October. And, I've been fortunate every week I've been able more or less to go out and either hike or, camp overnight once. Haven't had a chance to do through hiking or anything like that. If you don't know what through hiking is, that's like when you go hiking for days on end or weeks on end or even months on end. Things like the Pacific Crest Trail, the Appalachian Trail, those sorts of things. One day we'll get there. But for me, I have little kids. It's not really in the cards. With that said, I have had a chance to go from hot weather, because it's still hot here in October, to cold weather. And I've had a chance to do a few different types of terrain. And I've had a chance to go from no gear to gear that works for me. So let's start here. All right, the basis for all thing outdoors, and the thing everybody loves to talk about, is gear. And I would say that you have to do what works for you. You're going to see a lot of people say, oh, if you're hiking, you need to have ultralight gear and all this other stuff, and that's absolute nonsense. There are people that need that, and there are people that don't. For me, I don't. All right, I've been lifting forever. I'm strong. It's not an issue for me. For others, it might be. But I will say this, and a lot of people are going to be disagreeing with me on this. This could be a controversial take. I will say that you need at least mid-cut hiking boots. There are some of you like, no, your ankle's supposed to do that. You know what? You know how many times I've been saved from having ankle sprains on just regular trails just by virtue of wearing hiking boots? So many times. It's too easy when things are uneven, when it's rocky, when it's muddy. Forget about it. You end up being sideways really quick. And that can mean, by the way, that your foot kind of gets stuck and the rest of you goes the other direction. So I would say that be smart, at least get mid-top. That, I will say, is something that I would hold by. The other things, there are always things that you have to have on you. You have to have an emergency kit, a little basic survival kit. Everybody knows that it's always the guy going out for the day hike who ends up being the one that gets stranded in the wilderness for a month, and they find him barely alive with like a broken leg and, bones sticking out through his nose because he broke his face and fell down a mountain. It's always when you think it's not going to happen. The other requisite thing I will say is always have enough water with you or know where to get water. And that means having filters, water pills, those sorts of things. That's an absolute must. And I think that for me, the one thing I will not go without is a good field knife. This is one of a few that I have. It's a Roik. It's about 4.5-inch blade, Sandvik steel. It's tough, it's thick. And just about anything I need to do out here, I can do with it. You're always going to need to cut something. You always need it accessible, and you need a sheath on you that works, even when you're just hiking. All right, I don't care. You always find a reason. I don't know how, but that's the way it is, okay? When you're out here and I think this goes beyond the subject of gear, you're not in a controlled environment. When you're sitting at home and you're sitting at work, when you go to a mall, when you go to a restaurant, I don't know, you are in a controlled environment. When you're out in nature, you are not. You're not in control of the weather. You're not in control of the terrain. You're only in control literally of yourself, and at times even that's questionable, because if you don't have enough layers and it's cold, you're done. You're in a bad way. And vice versa, if it's hot and you don't have enough water, or you're not drinking it because you're saving it, which by the way I don't recommend doing, I used to do that, bad idea. Really, really bad idea. Again, you're going to get dehydrated real quick. So you're not in control, and I think that for a lot of people starting out doing this sort of thing, that feeling of not being in control is a big one. Things that should make you nervous and that should not make you nervous. You know, a lot of people when they come out to hike or camp, whatever, they think about, oh, wild animals and all this other stuff like that. I have yet to see one. I think I saw a lizard once. And you're not going to see them unless they really want you to see them. And they're not really looking to mess with you. They really aren't. Unless you come across like a mama bear, that would be a sow, by the way, in technical terms, with her cubs, or you're riding a bicycle past a mountain line and it thinks you're a deer, you're really not in trouble. The one thing I will say is that when it's spring and all the venomous snakes start coming out, okay, now you have to pay a little closer attention, and depending on how densely populated they are in your area, then yeah, then you do pay attention. You have to watch where you put your hands if you have to get hands on rocks, and let me tell you, with rare exception, at some point or another, I have always had to have hands on rocks. Recently, it's been a lot more, and those have been close call cases where you're doing something called scrambling, where it's kind of like a level between hiking and rock climbing, where you're basically, it's so steep that you're on all fours and the trail's just rocks and you're just climbing. You're basically bear crawling up. But when it comes to the subject of venomous snakes and things like that, then it becomes a risk when they start coming out, because you don't know where they are, so you really got to look. That is the one exception I will make to the rule about watching out for animals. But other than that, they aren't an issue. It's not something you should worry about. What you should worry about is weather changes. Last week, I had to turn back because basically it became ungoable. If you keep going, it's raining, it's cold. I already felt myself slipping on the rocks, and I did slip, and at that point it became all rock, and it was just no. The weather will kill you. It tore up my pants. I headed home no pants because I thought I did. I called my wife and I asked her if there were like sweats on the bed, and she's like, yeah, and I was like, forgot them. But that's what it is. Okay, you will succumb to the weather very quickly if you are wet and cold. All right, exposure is the number one danger that you face. And the other thing is, like, I would say you have to learn to be comfortable outside. All right, I mentioned earlier that you're not used to being in a place where it's a controlled environment. Just being outside, out in nature, brings on this primal feeling. Something that you can't control, and something where it's like, oh, I'm just something else in the ecosystem, and all of a sudden you find yourself looking over your shoulder a lot more. And you stop being afraid of it. All right, even I will admit sometimes there have been a few cases, like when I started, where I was just like, no, this doesn't look right. Or tried camping once, and it was like, the first little while was like, it felt a little scary because there is an ancestral part of you, you know, some like caveman type thing that's like, oh, it's dark outside, there are predators. And while we do have some of those things around here, Don't have any of the really cool stuff that you guys have if you're watching in like Europe or North America. You guys have bears. But there are leopards somewhere around here. They're supposed to be extinct, but not really. There is a certain fear of the dark that doesn't come from nowhere, and it's primal. But even the further out you get, let's just say like right now, I'm a little ways away from a trailhead in as far as I feel like comfortable walking in regular shoes before things get too shifty, because I wanted a nice picturesque scene for this. You start to feel like, oh, I could be in trouble real quick. Like, some could come get me. Every noise you hear is going to bother you. And then that stops bothering you. You become smart. You become more attuned. And so I would say lose your fear. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I would say it's totally worth it. So long as you come prepared and you use what my dad would call a kleine bissel sechel. You use a little bit of brains. You're going to be okay. And it's worth it, because the serenity that it brings, the getting back in touch with, I don't know, call it spiritual, call it existential, call it nature, whatever it is that you need to call it for you, it's worth it. It puts you in a good headspace, and it's definitely worth trying if you haven't. I know right now, if you're in the US or Canada, it's been snow central. Guess what? Snow camping is a very popular thing these days. All right. I would love to try it sometime. You get what's called a hot tent. All right, you get a tent, you pop a hole in the top, and you pop a little stove inside that has a chimney. It goes up, heat up your tent nicely, and you have this gorgeous, gorgeous camp. So if you're in somewhere where it's snowing and you're like, I don't like this, try it. Go to your local outdoor store, grab a hot tent and that stove, some wood, some steak. If you're vegetarian, I don't know what to tell you. You're hopeless. Take advantage of it. It's certainly something that I add on to my list of things I want to do. But ultimately, when you come out here, you have to trust your own instincts. That's going to be the difference between you having a bad day and you having a good day. And that's that. So, if you thought this was insightful, click like and subscribe. That would be really cool. And hopefully I'm going to get some boost soon and get back out there for real. And I hope you do too. So, I will see you next time.